So here we are. I guess let me back up a little bit. I felt like doing something a little bit different for this 5-Minute Friday. We'll take you on a little bit of a journey through some of my training session and some of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis. I usually kind of try to keep my training separate from some of the conversations that I have, but at the same time, during training, I do get a lot of ideation for some of the things that I want to work on, some of the things that I want to build towards. And so we'll see how the sound goes for this. So, hi, I'm Dr. J. Welcome to this 5-Minute Friday. This week we're going to talk about grinding and what it means to grind or what that even means for our perspective. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to get warmed up here. Kind of change out the sandals, wearing my fake Birkenstocks. And we'll just get it going. And so I was in the gym on last Saturday. I mean, I'm in the gym every day, but specifically on last Saturday, a coach came through, and I hadn't met this coach before. And she saw me in there, and I think she was possibly looking for some work for one of her boxers, but I was a little bit heavy for what she was looking for. I typically walk around in, the 50s, 150s, high 140s, and she was looking potentially for work for some of her boxers who I think were lighter. And we got talking and just talking about the lifestyle and the grind that it is, right? And I made that comment to her, and I told her, I was like, training for boxing, training for sport, training as a professional is a grind. The work that we do is a grind. And she paused and she was like, is it really a grind if that's what we do? And I was like, I think you might be spot on with that. And so if we look at that perspective and we think about what it means to be on your grind or to have a grind, is that a perspective, and is the grind wearing you down? Because then you think about some of the stuff that I say, and I tell you guys every week to be, as always, be refined by the grind. But the grind that I talk about is not a whittling down. It's not you having less. It's you refining yourself so that every time you approach those situations, every time you're asked of, or every time you have an opportunity, you're actually arriving better than when you started. You're better than the previous time that you had, and you're better than any of the other times up until this point. And so you're really starting, over, and you're starting new. And so she brought this to my attention, and now it's been stuck in my head. So then as this theme really got stuck in my head, I gotta set this timer because otherwise I won't know how many rounds I've been jump roping for. But as this theme really started to get stuck in my head, I really started to reconsider if something is a grind and looking at that perspective. Like, okay, if I'm looking at this thing and I'm viewing it as a grind, is this something that I enjoy? Is this something that I have to do? Or is this something that is bringing me to a point of growth or enriching my experience at this point, right? And so if we think about the grind being part of what we do every day, and we look at that as something that's building onto what we've already got going on, is it really a grind? Or is this that work that we always do, right? And so if we look at things and we start to think about them as being the work that we do, I think that takes some of the weight off of our shoulders, right? And so if we're taking some of that weight off our shoulders, don't you think we would get better at what we do? Because when are we at our best? We're at our best when we're able to focus on the task at hand. We're at our best when we have a focus about what we're doing, where we have a clearly defined task, right? Where we know what the variables are, as what do we have access to, what can we access, what can we control, what needs to be modified, what can we work on. And it really started to unravel this whole rabbit hole for me. And I was thinking, maybe we look at the grind the wrong way. And if we're really about these things as far as, being serious, this isn't saying that you have to do these things every day, all day. But if we're able to free ourselves with that perspective, even within those small pieces, don't you think it'll make those things more enjoyable? And then if we're able to enjoy the hard work, if we're able to enjoy easy work, and we're able to enjoy the intermediate work, that'll transcend a lot of kind of the boring pieces, right? Because when we get down to it, what's the most important part? Fundamentals, right? And the fundamentals are kind of the grind because they're repetitive, but they're structurally important to every sport, to every job, to every goal, to every part of what we're aiming to do. And if we find enjoyment in the smallest components, or the simplest, the most basic, the most important components, don't you think we will only continue to grow from here? And so, as we continue to build this perspective, we're giving our brain the ability to handle those things that can seem daunting, can seem, uninteresting or slightly boring just because it is the same thing again, But then a fresh perspective changes all of those things, right? And so then we keep that piece going, and how could we not grow from there? How could we not build from there, right? So then, maybe the most important part of looking at this with perspectives is along the lines of we really have to define what our grind is, right? Like, what do you want to be known for? What do you value as an attribute? What do you value as characteristics? If you don't have consistency, it's going to be really hard to build a good foundation in any capacity, whether that's skill related, right? And sport specific skill, or even job specific skill. It'll be hard to build, consistency from an aerobic or speed or even special endurance space, right? If we're not consistently working on it. So then, if you're inconsistent, right? And one of the easiest examples is, the easiest examples is looking at running, right? If you've been practicing speed work, it's easier to handle speed work. If you've been practicing that intermediate, more endurance-oriented space, it gets easier, right? And if you've been practicing mileage and you've been running long distances, guess what? You're geared for running the distances. But it can be hard to maneuver between those spaces depending on the growth and the adaptations that you're looking for. So, if we're looking to be adaptable, our most important influence in that grind and having that perspective is we're getting to train consistently. And then we're having variety within our training, but we're consistent about our training, we're intentional about our training, and we're creating a space for it so that when we are working on it, we're focused on it. And so, sometimes with the things that we have going on in life, we might not be able to devote eons and eons of time to that one thing. But when we talk about deliberate practice and we look at the influence of that task, if you're able to be focused, concentrated, and efficiently effortful, right? Within that context for that thing, you will receive the benefit of that work. And so, hours and hours and hours and not resting our body does not translate into necessarily positive growth. You might have some immediate growth, but that's hard to maintain in the long run, right? And so if we're thinking about refining ourselves through this grind and utilizing this perspective, it won't all happen in one day. And I'll say it again, I've said it times before, The only thing that happens overnight is rest. That's it. The only thing that happens overnight is rest, right? And so as we look to build these things, we prepare for an undertaking, but the undertaking is little bit by little bit, right? Builders, when they start a construction project, do not put the roof on immediately. Are they building to get to the point to put on a roof? Yes, but it starts with the foundation, right? We're gonna switch gears here a little bit. I wish I could do the activity and count and talk, but I can't. So keep finding your grind, keep finding yourself through the grind, and wait to watch that magnify. And so now, over the past week and a half, I've had this perspective on my training of, we're not grinding, I'm being more of myself. I'm doing more of the things that create me to be more of who I am, right? And it's not a separate thing, but this is who I'm becoming, right? And we think about that in context of goal setting too, right? And a lot of times when we talk about setting goals, we want to envision what we are aiming to become as we're seeking that out, right? But there's no one moment where you become that thing and say you're chasing a championship for that split second until the next season begins. You are the champion, but with the new year, with the new season, comes a new champion. And you very much have a chance to be a returning champion. But now you have to reset the goals to do the work again, to maintain that quality of effort, to maintain that status, to maintain that level of competitive spirit, competitive nature, competitive skill, right? And even just the endurance for that thing. So when the work ends, or the work stops, rather, we stop being it, or we stop becoming it, right? And you're gonna have phases throughout your life where you're actively pursuing those things, you're actively pursuing this, but you can be a lifelong athlete. What you compete in and what you challenge yourself with might change. People change careers, people change professions, right? But I think the aim remains for a lot of people is they want to be fulfilled in their work. They want to have an opportunity to have hobbies that they enjoy, and they want to be able to afford some of the comforts and the enjoyments of life. And it comes from the grind, right? But that perspective is, this is part of what we do to continually choose today, choose tomorrow, and choose the next day, that this is where we want to be, and this is what we want to be, and how we want to be. I hope you had a little bit of fun taking a journey with me today as I did a little bit of training and talked about a few things that were on my mind. Once again, I'm Dr. J, and thank you for tuning into this week's 5 Minute Friday. And as always, be refined by the grind.